The wedding dress was beautiful, ivory silk, hand-stitched lace, delicate pearls woven along the hem. It looked like something out of a royal fairy tale. But Alina couldn't stop crying, not the happy kind of crying either. Her lips quivered, and her body shook as her mother dabbed her cheeks gently with a tissue. "Stop it," she whispered. "People are watching." But how could Alina stop? Her hands were trembling under the weight of diamond rings and pressure. She was just 18, barely out of high school, and now, today, she was marrying a man 40 years older than her, a man she didn't love, a man she barely even knew. Billionaire Ronald Grant was a legend in the city, real estate tycoon, oil empire successor, and owner of half the skyscrapers in Manhattan. But more than that, he was cold, powerful, and scary in the way only truly rich men could be, not with words, but with silence and control. He didn't ask for Alina's hand. He bought it. Alina's father, drowning in gambling debt, had sold his daughter's future like she was some shiny object to be traded. "You'll live like a queen," he had said, choking back shame. "You'll have everything you ever dreamed of." But what did that mean, really? Gold-plated loneliness? Silk curtains in a loveless prison? As the wedding march began, Alina blinked back the last of her tears and looked ahead at Ronald. Tall, silver-haired, dressed in a black suit tailored so perfectly it looked painted on. He didn't smile. He just nodded slightly as she approached, like a man accepting a business deal, not a bride. When the priest spoke the vows, Ronald didn't flinch. "I do," he said calmly. Alina's throat tightened. Her voice cracked. As she whispered the same, "I do." She felt like she'd just signed her soul away. The applause came like waves, fake and loud, clapping over the sound of her breaking inside. But the strangest part, he never touched her. Not during the wedding photos, not during the ride to the mansion, not even when they were alone in the grand bridal suite, a room the size of a football field with gold mirrors, a massive fireplace, and a bed so big it could fit 10 people. Alina sat stiffly on the edge, fingers clenching her gown. Ronald walked in slowly, unbuttoning his suit jacket, and sat across from her, not beside her, in an armchair by the fire. "Are you scared of me?" he asked, his voice smooth but unreadable. She nodded honestly. "I don't blame you," he said. "They sold you to me like cattle. I'd be scared too." That made her look up. Was that regret in his voice? He leaned forward slightly. "I won't force you to do anything. You're my wife by law, yes, but your body, your soul, that's still yours." Alina's heart thudded. That wasn't what she expected at all. She thought he'd throw her onto the bed like some twisted reward for his money. "I don't want this life," she whispered. "Neither did I," he replied quietly. "I didn't want a young bride. I wanted peace. But peace doesn't exist in my world. So I bought security." She blinked. Security. Ronald looked her straight in the eyes. "There are people who want me dead, people who want my empire. A young wife and keeps them distracted, confused, thinking I'm still powerful enough to keep claiming new territory." Alina's mouth went dry. This wasn't about love, not even lust. It was about power games. And she was just another pawn on his board. "But tonight," he said softly, standing up and heading toward the door, "you can sleep alone. I'm not the monster they make me out to be, Alina." As the heavy door clicked shut behind him, Alina stared at the bed. Her wedding night untouched. No pain, no horror, only questions. Who exactly was Ronald Grant? And what had she truly married into? Alina barely slept that night. The silence in the mansion was too loud, the bed too big, her thoughts too heavy. She kept replaying Ronald's words in her head about danger, enemies, power moves. He didn't buy her for love. He bought her as a shield, a distraction. And while he promised not to touch her, that didn't mean she was safe. Not from the house, not from his world. When she woke, the sun was slicing through the velvet curtains. A maid was already at the door, bowing slightly. "Good morning, Mrs. Grant. Mr. Grant would like you to have breakfast with him in the west dining room." Mrs. Grant. The word still felt like an insult stitched in diamonds. Alina got dressed, someone had laid out a cream-colored Chanel dress for her and followed the long marble hallway to the dining room. It looked more like a palace banquet hall than anything else. There was one long table, polished to perfection, and only 2 chairs. Ronald sat at the far end reading the newspaper, sipping black coffee like he hadn't just bought a teenager to be his wife. "Sit," he said without looking up. She obeyed. For a while, neither spoke. The clinking of cutlery and distant ticking of an antique clock filled the space. Then he finally said, "You don't have to stay here if you don't want to." Alina looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean this house. You can move into any one of my other properties. I have penthouses, beach estates. Choose one. I'll have security installed. You'll be safe." "You want me gone?" He looked at her now. "I want you alive." The words hit differently. Alina's stomach tightened. "Are you saying—" "Someone's trying to kill me. Not you, me, but they'll use you to get to me. That's why I wanted someone unexpected. You weren't part of my world. You're off the radar. That makes it harder for them to track." She stared at him. This wasn't marriage, it was a chess match, and she was the queen he'd placed on the board, and not to win but to protect the king. "Why not just hire security?" "I did. They keep dying." Alina's blood ran cold. He stood and walked toward her slowly, but there was no threat in his movement, only a strange kind of sadness in his eyes. "You're wondering why I chose you. I saw you once at that charity auction. You looked like you didn't belong. You were scared, but you were polite. You didn't flirt. You didn't fake a smile. You were real." Alina remembered that night. Her father had forced her to wear heels and serve drinks to rich men so he could beg for investments. She'd hated every second of it. "I remembered you," Ronald continued. "And when your father came to me, drowning in debt, it was the perfect excuse." She felt sick. "You bought me like a dog." "Yes," he said without blinking. "And that might be the only thing that keeps you alive." Her hands curled into fists on the table. She wanted to scream, to throw the crystal glass at the wall, to run and never come back. But she didn't, because something deeper was brewing beneath his calm exterior, something terrifying. After breakfast, a man in a black suit arrived. Younger in tense eyes, military posture. "This is Elias," Ronald introduced, "your personal bodyguard. He'll be by your side at all times." Elias gave a curt nod. "Mrs. Grant." Alina narrowed her eyes. "I don't need a babysitter." "You don't," Ronald agreed, "but a dead wife doesn't help me." That was the moment Alina understood. This wasn't about trust or protection. It was about strategy. She wasn't a woman to Ronald. She was a weak point in his empire, and he was trying to armor it. As she left the room, Elias trailing behind her, Alina caught a glimpse of herself in the giant mirror on the wall. Still young, still scared, still dressed in designer things she didn't ask for. But now, married to a man who saw threats in shadows and whose enemies might already have her face on their kill list. The days that followed moved like fog. Alina lived in a mansion full of silence, shadows, and secrets. Every hallway echoed. Every room felt like it had eyes. And Elias, her new bodyguard, was always close. Too close. He didn't speak much. He watched, listened, followed, like a ghost in a tailored suit. Alina hated him at first, but something about his quiet presence started to feel protective. Not warm, just constant, real. On the 3rd night she tried to sneak out. Not to escape, really, just to breathe. She couldn't sleep. The house was too cold, her thoughts too loud. She crept down the grand staircase barefoot, dressed in one of the ridiculous silk robes the staff kept laying out for her. When she reached the bottom, she heard it. A low voice. Ronald. He was on the phone, pacing near the study, door slightly ajar. "No. That wasn't the deal," he snapped. "I don't care who's threatening the board. You give them the decoy files. If they fall for it, good. If not, we go nuclear." Alina's heart raced. "We married under contract. That makes her untouchable. If they harm her, I bury them one by one." She pulled back quickly, breath caught in her throat. So he was protecting her. But not out of love. out of strategy. She was untouchable, now like some trophy kept in a glass case, a warning to his enemies that she belonged to him. She returned to her room quietly, heart pounding. That night Elias knocked before entering. "You shouldn't roam alone, Mrs. Grant," he said. "They're watching." "Who's watching?" He didn't answer directly, just pulled out a small black device and scanned the room. A moment later it beeped. He pulled a tiny microphone from under her nightstand. "What the hell is that?" Alina gasped. "Bug," he muttered, already checking the walls. "You mean someone's been listening to me?" Elias gave her a sharp look. "They're not here for you, they're here because of who you married." "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "No one does," he said. By morning, Alina felt different. Not just scared and angry, tired of being seen as weak, tired of being traded like property. She stormed into Ronald's office. He was sitting behind a mahogany desk, going through files, calm as always. "We need to talk." He didn't look. About? You married me for strategy, fine, but I'm not some brainless doll. I want to know what I'm dealing with. That made him pause. He folded his hands. "You want in?" "I'm already in," she snapped. "At least tell me who wants us dead." He stood and walked to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly. "You ever heard of the Delmont Group?" She shook her head. "They're not on the internet." "Not in papers, but they run everything from the shadows, defense, tech, surveillance. They've been after my company for years. I blocked their takeover deals, refused to fund their private war games. Now they want blood. And where do I fit into that? You're my leverage, my unpredictability. They don't know what I've told you, what you might expose." Alina's stomach twisted. She thought being poor was hard, but being rich, married and hunted, that was a whole different kind of prison. "Why not just run?" she asked. He turned to face her. For the first time his voice cracked just slightly. "Because I've spent 40 years building something no man can steal. I won't die hiding. I'll die fighting." Alina stepped back. He wasn't just cold, he was broken, hardened by years of betrayal, survival and power. And now somehow she was the last piece in his twisted puzzle. That night she found a red envelope slipped under her bedroom door. No name, just a card inside, written in messy, fast handwriting. "You're not safe with him. Meet me at the greenhouse, midnight, come alone." Her hands shook. It wasn't Ronald's handwriting, and it sure as hell wasn't Elias's. The red envelope burned in Alina's hands like fire. She read the message again and again. "You're not safe with him. Meet me at the greenhouse. Midnight. Come alone." She didn't know what scared her more, the message itself or how a stranger had slipped it into her bedroom undetected. That meant one thing. Security had already been breached. She wanted to tell Elias, wanted to show Ronald. But something inside her said don't, not yet. Because whoever wrote this knew something, maybe even something Ronald was hiding from her. At 11:59 p.m. she slipped out of bed. The moonlight was silver and sharp, shining through the window like a spotlight. She tiptoed past the sleeping halls, heart thudding like war drums. The greenhouse was on the far end of the estate, a glass and steel structure that looked like it belonged in a royal garden. Inside, everything was overgrown. Wild roses, tangled vines, exotic plants that smelled too sweet to be natural. She stepped inside quietly, her breath fogging the cool glass. "Alina," a voice said softly from the shadows. She jumped. A man stepped forward. Young, maybe late 20s, tall, brown skin, tired eyes, dressed like one of the gardeners, but holding himself like he didn't belong here. "Who are you?" she whispered. "My name is Jace," he said. "I worked for Ronald, until he ruined my life." Her mouth went dry. "You worked for him?" Jace nodded. 3 years, private research division. We were developing counter-tech to Delmont Group's tracking systems. Then Ronald made a deal behind our backs, sold our work, framed me for the breach. Alina blinked. "No, he said the Delmont Group wants him dead?" Jace finished. "Yeah, probably true. But Ronald's not innocent. He's not a victim. He played both sides. Fed information to Delmont to protect his own skin while sacrificing anyone who got too close." Alina's knees weakened. Why are you telling me this? Because you're not just a trophy wife, Jace said, voice tense. You're the alibi. He's using your innocence as cover. If something happens to you, the whole world looks at him. He made sure of that. Her breath caught. Was that why Ronald never touched her? Not because he respected her, but because damaging her would blow up his public image? Jace handed her a flash drive. This has part of the original research, and a file with names. People Ronald betrayed. Some are dead now, some disappeared. Alina stared at the drive. You think I'm just supposed to believe you? She whispered. No, Jace said, but you deserve the truth. All of it. Suddenly, headlights flashed outside the greenhouse. Jace pulled back into the shadows. Go. Now. You weren't. Here. Alina turned and ran, just as Elias's voice cut through the garden like a blade. Alina! She froze. Elias stood by the pathway, expression unreadable, one hand on his holster. What are you doing out here? He asked, slowly stepping closer. I couldn't sleep, she lied. Needed air. Elias didn't move. You're lying. She looked up at him, heart thudding. Why are you really here, Elias? He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, to keep you alive, even if that means protecting you from him. Her stomach turned. Elias knew. He wasn't just Ronald's bodyguard. He was watching both of them. As they walked back to the house, Alina clutched the flash drive in her palm like it was the only weapon she had left. Because now she didn't just feel unsafe. She felt like she was standing between two monsters, and neither of them told the full truth. Alina didn't sleep that night. She sat in her massive bedroom, silk sheets untouched, eyes fixed on the tiny flash drive she'd hidden inside a hollowed-out perfume bottle. Her heart told her to run, but her mind whispered know everything first, then burn it all down. By sunrise, she slipped into Ronald's private study while the house was still quiet. She knew he left early every Sunday morning for meetings at a secret estate in upstate New York. Elias was off making rounds. This was her only chance. She plugged the flash drive into the secure laptop Ronald always kept locked behind the cabinet, a cabinet she'd learned the password to just 2 days ago, Iron Legacy. The files loaded slowly, and what she found was worse than anything she expected. Hundreds of documents, all encrypted, but a few had been decrypted by Jace already. One folder was titled Collaterals. Inside were pictures, dozens of them, faces, names, files, a pregnant woman, a teenage boy, a lab technician in a wheelchair, each one marked with a red stamp, disposed. Alina's breath caught in her throat. These were people Ronald had cut off, used, discarded, possibly even had killed, just to keep his empire safe. Then she opened the audio files. One voice recording stood out. A meeting between Ronald and someone labeled DG Advisor. If the girl finds out, she won't, she's naive. Still, if this leaks, then we silence her quietly, no mess, I've done it before. Alina slapped a hand over her mouth. They weren't just using her, they were ready to kill her the moment she became inconvenient. Her fingers trembled as she pulled the drive out and stuffed it back into the perfume bottle. She had to think fast. She couldn't go to the police, not without dying first. She couldn't trust Ronald. And now, even Elias was questionable. He knew too much but spoke too little. Suddenly, the study door creaked open. Alina froze. Ronald stood there, still dressed in a black coat, scarf in one hand, phone in the other. His eyes locked onto hers, calm but sharp. Couldn't sleep, he asked. I was just looking for a book, she lied, stepping back from the desk. He walked toward her slowly, placing his phone on the desk. You found something else? Instead, didn't you? Alina swallowed hard. Like what? His jaw tightened. You're not stupid, Alina. That's what I liked about you. She blinked. Liked? He stared at her a long moment. I hoped you'd never open that drive. Her heart pounded. So it's all true. He said nothing, just moved to the cabinet, shut the laptop, and locked it again. Some of it's true, some of it's not. But you weren't supposed to see any of it. That world eats people like you. I'm not property, she snapped. I never said you were, he said softly. But you're mine now, and that puts a target on your back." She stepped away from him, voice shaking. "You had people killed." "I protected what's mine," Alina's voice cracked. "Would you kill me too?" Ronald's expression didn't change, but his silence did. For the first time she saw it. The crack. The old billionaire wasn't just dangerous, he was exhausted, hollow. As if his fortune had cost him more than just people. It had eaten his soul. "No," he finally said. "But others would. And if you leave me now, they will." She turned and walked out, heart slamming in her chest. Upstairs she locked her door, collapsed against it, and let herself cry. Not because she was weak, because she was waking up. This marriage wasn't a mistake. It was a trap wrapped in diamonds. Alina didn't cry again after that day. Something inside her snapped, not in a way that made her fall apart, but in a way that made her dangerous. She'd entered Ronald Grant's world as a pawn, but now she was studying the board, and she wanted to flip the whole damn game. She couldn't leave, not yet, but she could start taking control. The next morning she wore a deep red dress, one of the more daring ones. She painted her lips, straightened her hair, and walked into breakfast with a smile Ronald hadn't seen before. He looked up slowly from his newspaper. "You look different." "I feel different," she said, sitting across from him and pouring herself coffee. "You were right. This world eats people like me. People like me." He raised an eyebrow. "And I'm done letting it." They didn't speak again for the rest of breakfast, but something had shifted. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't the girl he married. That night, when Elias knocked on her door for his usual check, Alina pulled him inside. "We need to talk," she said firmly. He hesitated. "If Ronald—" "Forget Ronald. I want to know who you work for." Elias studied her for a moment. Then he did something she didn't expect. He locked the door behind him. "I work for the Grant family," he said, "but not for Ronald, not really." "What does that mean?" "It means I was hired by someone else in the bloodline, someone who doesn't want Ronald's empire to survive him." Alina's heart jumped. "Someone in his family wants him dead." "Not dead," Elias said. "Just weakened, stripped of legacy. You, Alina, are part of that plan. They needed someone pure, someone unexpected. Someone Ronald would think he controlled." She stepped back. "So this marriage wasn't even his idea." "It was, but it was also planted, influenced. Ronald thought he chose you, but he was steered toward you." Her head spun. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you weren't one of them," Elias said, "and that's what made you perfect." Alina sat down on the bed, her mind racing. Every part of her life, her father's debt, the auction, the sudden proposal, had been engineered. "So what now?" she asked. "That depends on you," Elias said, lowering his voice. "If you play this right, you can walk away with everything. His name, his money, his company, everything he spent his life protecting." Alina narrowed her eyes. "And what do I have to do?" "Stay close, smile, act the perfect wife, gain his trust, make him give you legal access to his holdings, then disappear." She laughed bitterly. "You want me to seduce the devil, then steal?" "His crown?" Elias stepped closer. "He already stole your freedom. This is just taking it back." The idea terrified her. But it also made something stir in her chest, something hot, sharp, and powerful. For the first time, she had leverage. The next week, Alina began playing the part. She hosted brunches, kissed Ronald's cheek in front of investors, posed for photos by his side. At night, they had long talks by the fireplace, not about love but legacy, about regrets, about enemies. He began to open up, and Alina, with every word, studied him. She learned where the offshore accounts were, who his real enemies were, and most importantly, what he was afraid of losing. And it wasn't the money. It was control. One night he took her hand and said, "You've surprised me. I thought you'd be gone by now." She looked him in the eye and said, "I'm right where I need to be." But deep down, she was already planning her exit. And when she left, she wouldn't go empty-handed. 2 months into her marriage, Alina wasn't just surviving, She was collecting power. Every dinner with Ronald was another chip in her pile. Every smile, every kiss on the cheek in front of investors or press, all of it was strategic. She didn't love him. She didn't even respect him, but she was learning him, and he was letting her in. One evening, as they sat in the library, him reading old documents, her pretending to browse poetry, he sighed deeply. "Do you ever think about legacy?" he asked. Alina glanced up. "You mean what we leave behind?" He nodded slowly. "I've built empires, crushed rivals. I've made more money than I can spend in 10 lifetimes, but at the end of the day, I'll be remembered as the man who took too much from too many." She let the silence sit for a moment, then asked softly, "Do you regret it?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope. "There's something I want you to have, a step toward trust." Inside was a set of signed documents, shares, accounts, and a legal note transferring full rights of his East Asian real estate holdings to her name. Alina's throat tightened. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you never pretended to love me," he said quietly. "And somehow that made you the most honest person I've ever known." That night, alone in her room, she stared at the documents under the glow of the bedside lamp. Her hands shook. He was giving her real power. Not gifts, not dresses, control. The next morning, Elias found her in the greenhouse, same place she'd first met Jace. He stepped in, closing the door behind him. "We've got one shot," he said. "The Delmont Group is planning a major strike. They want to assassinate Ronald in 2 weeks, at a shareholders' retreat in Geneva." Alina blinked. "How do you know?" "Because they tried to hire me to help." Her chest tightened. "And you said no?" "I said I'd think about it," Elias said. "But I came to you instead." For a moment the air between them changed. They weren't just allies anymore. They were the only 2 people in that mansion who weren't faking it anymore. Alina paced. "If Ronald dies, I inherit everything he just transferred to me." Elias nodded. "You could disappear, start over, live, or take it all and burn them down." She stared out the glass at the fog rolling across the garden. "What if I warned him?" she asked. "What if I used the attack to expose them both, the Delmonts and Ronald?" "That's a suicide move," Elias said, but Alina's eyes were sharp now. No fear, just strategy. "No," she said, "it's checkmate. We leak, just enough to make the Delmonts panic. Ronald will double security, but I'll be the one pulling the strings." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And if it fails?" Alina gave a soft smile. "Then I die as more than a girl who was sold. I die as the girl who chose her ending." She left the greenhouse that morning with a plan. She called Jace, sent encrypted files to her own cloud, booked a fake identity with a private jet company under a name no one knew. The countdown had begun. 12 days until Geneva. 12 days until everything burned or everything flipped. And the old billionaire. He had no idea that the wife he thought he owned was already writing his final chapter. The private jet touched. Down in Geneva under cloudy skies, Ronald, dressed in one of his signature dark suits, looked calm, controlled. He never showed nerves, even when death hovered in the background. Alina walked beside him, hand wrapped around his arm, lips painted red. To the public, she was the beautiful young wife of a powerful billionaire. But inside her purse, hidden in the lining, was a kill file. Everything Ronald had hidden, everything the Delmont Group wanted silenced. The retreat estate was perched, high on a mountain, glass walls, security at every entrance. Only 20 people invited, all power brokers, board members, or enemies pretending to be friends. Elias was already there, posing as private security, watching everything. Alina stuck to Ronald's side, smiling, laughing at jokes she didn't understand, playing the perfect wife. Until midnight. That was the deadline. She slipped away, heels silent on the marble floors, and met Elias on the balcony overlooking the lake. Fog rolled in like smoke. The lights from the city below looked like dying stars. "It's happening," he said. "They're here?" "2 of them, maybe more. I caught a glimpse of a Delmont sniper team parked in the woods. Ronald's armored? Not enough, Elias said. But I have your exit plan ready. If anything goes wrong, you disappear. Alina nodded. Not yet, I want to see it happen. She returned to the ballroom where Ronald stood speaking with a French telecom executive. His hand gripped a glass of whiskey, the same way it always did when he was on edge. As she approached, he gave her a slight nod, and something in his eyes shifted. He knew, not everything, but something. She pulled him aside, into a hallway lit by soft golden sconces. I know, he said before she could speak. Alina froze. You've been planning this, Ronald said quietly, for weeks. Her lips parted, but no words came. He continued, I saw the file transfers, the meetings with Elias, the fake ID, the offshore routing accounts. I watched you play me. She swallowed. Then why let me? Because I wanted to see if you'd follow through. Alina's eyes narrowed. And now, I'm giving you a choice. He pulled out a small envelope. Inside, a signed transfer of his entire U.S. property division, real estate worth billions, all in her name. You take this, leave tonight, and disappear. I call off the guards. I let the Delmont group try. If they succeed, fine. If they fail, even better. Either way, I'm out. She stared at him. Why? He looked exhausted. Because I'm done. I've done things no man should survive. I'm tired of killing ghosts. I married you thinking you'd protect me, but all you did was wake me up. Alina felt tears well up, not of sorrow, of rage, of exhaustion. You think this fixes everything? She whispered. You think giving me a piece of your blood money makes it okay? No, he said, but it gives you a future. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Elias appeared, tense. They're moving. We have minutes. Alina stared at Ronald. You're not going to run. He shook his head. I ran long enough. Then he did something unexpected. He leaned forward, kissed her forehead, and said, Thank you, Mata, for not pretending. And then he walked down the hall toward the ballroom. Alina and Elias turned and went the opposite direction, straight, to the emergency exit, out into the forest and to a black car waiting just beyond the estate walls. She looked back once. Seconds later, gunshots echoed in the night. Ronald Grant was dead. The news spread like fire. Billionaire killed in apparent attack by corporate rivals. But the press couldn't touch Alina. She was grieving, beautiful, and quiet. And now she was filthy rich. Ronald had transferred more than property. His last legal act had changed everything. Her name was on boards, on deeds, on assets across 5 countries. She never went back to the mansion, never answered another call from the Grant family. She disappeared. 6 months later, whispers of her surfaced in Morocco, then in Argentina, then Tokyo, always alone, always silent, until one morning in a penthouse overlooking the ocean, a familiar voice said from the doorway, You didn't take everything. Alina turned. Jace. She smiled. No, she said, just what I earned.